The gas was turned on as we slept, and in that one night, the silence crept. At 32, he slipped away and left us alone to the light of day. A wife, 3 children left behind, with a question buried in my mind. How could he go and leave us so? It's something I will never know. A wound I've carried my whole life long. I'm sorry.
Welcome to Pages of Purpose. I'm your host, Isaac Smith. Today we're going to meet Gail C. Cochrane, author of Healing Hearts with Hope, Between Life's Tears and Laughter. Gail began writing poetry at the age of 73, drawing from a lifetime of loss, love, fear, faith, healing, and reflection. Her work speaks to the quiet emotional battles many people carry and the hope that still can be found through them. In this conversation, we talk about the moments that shape her writing, the lessons hidden inside the pain and resilience, her poetry, and why it's never too late to find your voice. I appreciate Gail coming on the show with her vulnerability and also sharing some of her favorite poems, and hopefully there's someone in today's audience who very much benefits from hearing what it is she has to share. I also get to talk to her a little bit about what it's like to write poetry even at a later age. 73, starting her writing career. It is fantastic. If you're new to the show, be sure that you subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And with that, let's go to the interview. Gail, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's nice to have you on. It is nice to talk to a poet. You started writing poetry at 73, not to become a famous poet, but to give yourself the advice you needed to hear. What was happening in your life at that moment that made rhyme feel like the safest way for you to speak your truth?
Well, let me tell you why that's such a good question. Because I never really connected these two things, poetry and what may have been going on at that time. But looking back now, I had just gone through a really difficult time, both emotionally and physically. And that may have made me more reflective and honest. In fact, the reason I say that is because not long after that difficult time, I was out in the garage cleaning up, and I decided to look through an old chest. The chest had cards and letters that I've written over 65 years. And I decided I just opened the chest and sat there and decided to look over these cards and letters. And as I sat on that garage floor, I realized as I read those letters, most everything I wrote was written in rhyme. And I thought, wow, I never realized that. That was the first time I guess I'm a little bit slow because, I was in my 70s, but I had never recognized that I was so tuned in to poetry. Anyway, that week I happened to pick up a magazine, and in the magazine there was a page and it said, "Do you think you could write poetry?" And I thought, I wonder. And so on a whim, I just sat down and I said to myself, well, what do you know the most about? And I thought, well, the thing I knew the most about was fear. So I wrote The Shadow of Fear. And honestly, I wrote that poem in 10 minutes. And now that I know what it's like to write a poem, I'm still amazed, to be honest with you, because now I write them and I rewrite them and I rewrite them, and they're never good enough. And anyway, that was when I wrote The Shadow of Fear. I even brought that with me here. So if you're interested, I'll read you that original first poem I ever wrote.
Yes, please. We would love to hear a poem today.
Okay. The Shadow of Fear. I ask myself,
What is this thing that walks with me each day? It seems to go each place I go and knows what I will say. But I pretend it isn't there and act composed and calm. It's a lie I've learned to live with, so none will see alarm. The person I pretend to be took years to cultivate, but hidden deep inside my head, I'd hear, fear is your fate. I tell myself, you know you can. Don't be paralyzed and weak, for fear preys on the vulnerable and the very meek. I know it won't be easy, but if I fail to overcome this fear that walks with me each day, will know that it has won.
Very well done. And you wrote that in 10 minutes.
I did. Less than 10 minutes.
That's very well done. And thank you for sharing that today. I love it when we have our guests share some of what they've written. It makes the podcast feel more full.
Oh, thank you.
Let me ask you the next question. Early life and resilience. You shared that losing your father to suicide at a young age changed everything. In the 1940s, your mother was suddenly left alone with 3 small children and had to send you to live with others. What did those early years of separation and survival teach you about strength and hidden struggles?
You know, when I look back on that time, it was a dark time. Yes, I was sent away. I was sent away to live with an aunt I didn't know, who had 6 children and who certainly didn't need me. So I was in a place that I wasn't wanted and I didn't belong. To make matters worse, I was in a serious car accident. It was a hard year. I wrote a personal poem, actually, that I would love to share with you later in your podcast.
You've described yourself as someone who once believed she was the only one carrying heavy, hidden pain. How has your understanding of the walking wounded evolved over the decades, and how does that shape the way you write today?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is why I wrote The Walking Wounded. You know, before my daughter retired, she taught English literature at Fallbrook High School in California. And every year in April, for Poetry Month, I was invited to her class, all of her classes that day, to read my poems. Many times, Colette would have the kids, after we'd done our poems and stuff, she'd have them sit on the floor, and she called it the circle. And then she would ask them, is there anyone here who would like to share anything that might be on their minds? And you know, some of those sad stories are why I wrote The Walking Wounded. Those kids, they talked about fear, divorce, suicide, and depression. In fact, one of them had said that he tried to kill himself just the week before. So after that, I started listening more to what people don't say, not just what they do say, because I found out they hide, and I know this for a fact, what's real. The poem, The Walking Wounded, that can be found in my book.
There we go.
If anyone wants to read it.
Yeah. And hold it a bit closer to the camera so we make sure everyone gets a really good picture of what they're looking for on the cover. And we'll also make sure there will be links to it down in the show notes below.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. On the book, your collection is titled Healing Hearts with Hope, Between Life's Tears and Laughter. What does Healing Hearts with Hope mean to you personally? And why was it important for you to blend both tears and laughter into these poems?
Healing the heart. It isn't about erasing pain. It's more about learning to live with it without it overwhelming you. You know, Every day we make choices. We can either choose to keep going or shut down. You asked about the tears and laughter. Well, I think I included tears and laughter because they go together. Most people have both in their lives.
Let me ask you another question about the book.
Sure.
Many of your poems touch on heavy topics like divorce, fear, grief, and letting go, yet you feel incredibly gentle and encouraging. How do you manage to write about pain without leaving the reader feeling heavy?
I think that's because although pain may be part of the story, it's not the whole story. And it shouldn't get the final word. And I never want to leave someone feeling that they are drowning in pain. I want people to finish a poem feeling understood, and comforted, and reminded that hearts can heal.
In talking more about the book, one of the beautiful things about your poetry is how accessible and conversational it can feel. Was that intentional, or did it naturally come from writing the advice you wish someone had given you?
Okay, that one's an easy one. I speak very simply. I didn't go to college. It's very simple. I speak from the heart. But don't get me wrong. I sure would have loved to have had someone to talk to or give me advice. Like, what does a 6-year-old do when her father is gone overnight? Wonder if maybe this is the right time to even read my poem, The Man Who Smiled and Sang.
So you have a poem around this topic. Is that something you'd be willing to share with us today?
I sure would. I absolutely would. I'll tell you something, though, that you should know, I think. As I say, once I started writing and I really enjoyed doing it, the first thing that struck me is, you should write about that night. And I thought, no, 10 years it took me where I said yes. And actually, it was the last poem that I ever wrote. I finally wrote without hiding.
Oh, we'd be honored to hear it today if you're willing to read it.
I would. I'd love to. Thank you. My father worked with pride and grace at Brooklyn's Navy Yard's proud place. Too young for war, he served us still with steady hands and quiet will. He smiled with charm. His voice was strong. He'd sing to us all day long. The world, it seemed, would pause to see the light he brought, especially to me. But life can hide its deepest aches and make you feel your heart will break. In 46, I was close to 7. My father spoke of life and heaven. He asked me softly in the night, a question whispered in fading light. If I were gone, would you feel sad? A strange small talk I had with Dad. My sister said, I wouldn't know. And I, too young to truly know, just echoed her in what she said. These words still linger in my head. The gas was turned on as we slept, and in that one night, the silence crept. At 32, he slipped away and left us alone to the light of day. A wife, 3 children left behind, with a question buried in my mind. How could he go and leave us so? It's something I will never know. But time has passed, I'm 85, yet The memories still survive. I dream of the man I barely knew and search his face to find a clue. He's smiling still inside my mind. The dad, so gentle, sweet, and kind. But he was gone. He was just gone. A wound I've carried my whole life long. I'm sorry. I don't read that often.
Thank you for being vulnerable with us today. And it's clear that you loved your father very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really special.
If someone picks up your book on a difficult day and reads just one poem, which one would you hope that finds them? And what would you want that poem to whisper to their heart?
Well, I think that depends on the day. How I'm feeling that day. But today, I probably would say A Season Called Hope. Because that's a gentle reminder that, just as spring survives even the longest and harshest winter, the heart can also heal. And I wanted to whisper that no matter how heavy the day is, how it feels, the heart is still capable of healing. And, hope isn't never that far away. I do have that poem, and I could read it for you, if you'd like.
Yeah, I was going to say, if that's the one that someone's needing to hear today, let's have them hear it now.
Yeah, let's hear it. A Season Called Hope. I watched the birth of springtime when soft buds begin to show. From sleepy vines to greening trees, beneath the sky aglow. The cherry trees, like whispering dreams, stand blushing in the sun. The master's hand is in the breeze. New life has just begun. The meadow wears a golden hue that stirs something in my soul. A peace that passes understanding, that makes me strong and whole. Of all the seasons time reveals, it's spring that seems to say, the heart can heal and bloom again and find its way today.
I love that, especially the hint of a peace that passes understanding. That's very special to me.
I must admit, I love that. I love that expression, the peace that passes all understanding.
Well, let's talk about life and marriage. You've been married to your husband, Bill, for 64 years, which is extraordinary. What has kept your love strong through moves across continents, raising 4 children, and all the seasons of life?
Well, yes, this July, we will celebrate 65 years. And this is an easy one for me because, I met Bill on a blind date. He was in the Army at Fort Dix, New Jersey. And I went there with my girlfriend to visit her husband, who was also in the Army. And the minute I got off that bus and saw Bill for the first time, I was smitten. I need to show you. I put this together just for you.
Oh, perfect.
There he was in his uniform.
Oh, did you see him in his uniform the first time you saw him?
Oh, yes. That's what did it. That's what they say about women. It's true. Isn't he handsome? So anyway, we didn't really, he was in the service. And when he asked me to marry him, it was on a Sunday. And I had worked that whole week. Actually, I worked at Sears in their section where they fix all the TVs and stuff, the service department. Anyway, I worked that week. And then I planned my wedding on my day off. And we were married that next Saturday.
Oh, wow.
And because he was in the service, we really had only seen each other, met each other, been around each other maybe 7 times. It was different then too, you know. Well, I think when two people are really crazy about each other, I think they try harder when the going gets tough. We started life in Eritrea, in East Africa, where my daughter Colette was born. And when you're far away from everything you know, I think you learn to depend on each other. And I guess over the years, we built our life around God, love, and family. And you know what? After all these years, Bill's still the one I want to tell everything to.
That's fantastic. If you had to describe who Gail was today, in your own words, how would you introduce yourself to someone who has never met you?
I think that what I would say is, although I started writing poetry late in life, I did find my voice through rhyme. So considering that, I wrote a poem to tell you who Gail is. And it's called This Is Who Gail Cochrane Is. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. I never thought I'd write and rhyme, but life came knocking just in time. With years behind and tales to tell, I found in rhyme a space to dwell. No college taught me how to speak of sorrow deep or moments weak, but through the cracks a light came through, a path of words, both old and new, with faith in God and love to share. 4 kids, a husband, they're always there. And Sammy, small but bold and bright, who guards our hearts, both day and night. I write to laugh, to heal, to see what all these moments have meant to me. These poems hold my truth that heals my soul, a patchwork quilt to make me whole. So may you find in every line some hope, some heart, some touch of mine. For rhyme gave voice to all I knew, and poetry gives it back to you.
Well, it's very good to meet you, Gail.
It's been great to meet you also. Great. In fact, I never thought that I would enjoy this, but I have.
I'm glad. And it has been a pleasure getting to know you. And honestly, speaking personally, because I can only speak for myself, we're the only two on this call right now, but I am not wanting to take it for granted just how vulnerable you are with us today. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and from the audience for presenting your work to us this way today.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I appreciate you're being here and listening and caring. Oh, let me just show you little Sammy, by the way.
Yes, please. Oh, and he's in the book too.
And he's in the book too.
Well, Gail, if I can ask you one more question as we come to close today.
Sure.
For anyone listening who feels too old, too broken, or too late to start something meaningful, what would you say to them? What advice would Gail today give a younger version of us all?
I think the first thing I think is that if there's something in your heart that just won't go away, don't ignore it. It just may be your voice trying to find you. I do have if you can take another one, I did write a little poem called Quiet Courage for all these people out there who may feel they could use some courage. If you can handle it, okay.
I think that'd be an excellent way for us to close the show today. Yes, please.
Wonderful. Okay. Quiet courage. It's never too late to begin again, no matter your doubts or fear. For the hidden voice within your heart is still waiting for you to hear. You don't need strength beyond your own, just courage to start anew. One small step, though unsure at first, is all you need to do. And little by little, in gentle, brave ways, you'll build a stronger you.
If you would like a copy of Gail's book, you can find it by going down to the show notes below. And if you're new to the show, or if there's someone in your life you'd like to share this episode with, be sure that you leave a like, subscribe, and just give us a comment. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and with that, we will see you next time.